Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 6:48 and a quorum members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Here.
Mr. Helmer? Ms. Connick?
Here.
Mr. Kurth?
Here.
Ms. Schultz? Mr. Seidel?
Here.
Ms. Wonderchek?
I did receive a notification that Mr. Helmer, Mrs. Wonderchek, and Janet Schultz might be calling in. The other two will not be in present for this meeting. I would entertain a motion to recess into closed session.
Mr. Clerk, I move to recess into closed session pursuant to section 19.5, parent 1, parent C, parent E, and parent F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider, more specifically, the approval of closed session minutes and the employee services report.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel and a second by Ms. Crosby. Can I have a raise of hands for all in favor? Oh. Oh, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Ms. Connick?
Yes.
Mr. Kurth?
Yes. We will be adjourning to closed session and returning approximately 7 p.m. It is now 7 p.m. and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all of you who are able, please rise.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And now, for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday, providing the agenda to the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal-Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, the Waukesha Now, all of which have a filed request for all for public notice. As I'm looking, we would normally do to privilege of the floor at the moment. Seeing how we have no request for privilege of the floor, we're going to move straight away to the president's message and announcements. I know I'm acting president today. The only thing I say is tomorrow is the primary, so get out and vote. Next is administrative team report, superintendent's update.
Yeah, we are starting to ramp up to the start of another school year. Students have actually been in our classrooms and in our hallways all summer with summer school, which concluded several weeks ago. We actually already have students on their way back for the co-curriculars and extracurriculars that are starting to ramp up, with some of our athletic events actually starting in the next couple weeks. So in our opinion, school is actually already back underway. We just don't have everybody here. But certainly looking forward to it. We have had staff in for trainings throughout the summer. As the board is aware, the board did approve a new ELA curricular resources for us, and we've been ramping up with that as well. Our administrators have received training, and so we certainly have not sat idle over the summer. Certainly excited for another great school year. I did want to touch on one other item that actually caught my attention recently, and I do recognize that the board last year about this time approved a policy related to subjects that were controversial, and also within that the administrative team is now has basically a project and a plan to ensure that all of our resources are as transparent as possible for our families. And so we continue to revise that and find, better, more efficient ways, because some of it is actually related to our technological advances and some of the platforms and resources that we have. So I did inform the board of that a few weeks ago. We continue to work through that. But I did want to touch on something on a proposed curriculum in a school district that's very near to here, and it's happening in the Tosa School District. And the administrative team there is proposing curriculum that includes gender identity, sexual orientation, and other things at the elementary school level. Now, I know some of the folks that work in Tosa. Tosa is Tosa. They've got a much different board. They've got a much different community. They certainly have community values that I believe are different than those in the school district of New Berlin. What I will say is our administrative team will never bring anything of the sort to this school board as in any sort of proposal in any way, shape, or form. We believe that those types of conversations actually belong at home. They do not belong in our classrooms. I certainly believe, and members of our team believe, that it is completely actually inappropriate to be having these types of conversations in our classrooms, and not just the topics involved that just are not appropriate on so many different levels. But I wanted to make it clear, because sometimes when things hit the media, people start to wonder, well, what's going to be happening in our school district? And as you know, things can sometimes get carried away one way or the other. As you know, we experienced several years ago, and not that long ago, when we were being attacked for not being the diversity and inclusion that we provide in our school district that was not appropriate for some. We disagreed with that. We presented to the board, but there are certainly parameters that we will set. We actually have state requirements by DPI, of which we actually are required to provide human growth and development curriculum to our students. And so we meet that requirement, but under the idea that many of the conversations that are within that are actually held at home and that are not necessarily brought into our classrooms because of the nature of the topics. And so, again, as long as I'm here, as long as this team is here, this group of administrators is here, that's not something that this board needs to worry about unless the board would want that and direct us as administrators to do so. But as of now, we can't imagine that that would be the case. And so therefore, we're just going to assume that that's not something that's going to be happening in the school district of New Berlin. So those are the two things for my update today. And obviously, we continue to ramp up. Thank you.
I actually have a quick question, kind of a follow-up, because there have been discussions regarding the library, because we use an online library for the most part. Could you just kind of give a refresher of that subject, because that has come up as is in the news as well lately, as far as libraries, what's available, how the schools work as far as that's concerned, what can be checked out, and what systems that we have an availability for the students for our school district.
So what's interesting about that, Jeff, is that is something that we did address within, I don't know, time flies, right, the last couple of years. And certainly, those topics that I just mentioned, similar in nature to that, were being added to library lists. And I just want to remind ourselves that, while we are in a physical library here, most of our library materials actually exist online. And so these companies add books onto their online libraries. And it is extremely difficult to keep up with what's in those libraries. But certainly, should there be, as what had been brought to this board at that time, should there ever be something like that, or if we come across it, we'll address it proactively. We don't think that that's appropriate. We don't think it's age appropriate and appropriate, again, for many different reasons. Anything related to this type of sexual nature related. So we continue to be proactive as best that we can. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to be reactive, but note that we will always err on the side of it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate based on what I just said. So, but again, things change literally by the minute. Those pages, and in some cases, what happened the last time was we actually were forced to close down school, and so therefore we were forced to purchase these online libraries that we didn't necessarily have the opportunity to vet as well as we would have liked at the time, because literally we turned school off on a dime, if you recall. And so we needed resources for our students and our staff, and it's unfortunate that was something that shouldn't have happened, and we will take full responsibility for that. But those were the circumstances that surrounded some of that at that time. And then I do want to clarify that the New Berlin Public Library is not affiliated with the School District of New Berlin, and vice versa, because they have their own library board. They're a separate entity. I know that there was some conversation around some of the resources at the public library too, and we are two separate entities. So,
well, I also want to just note that this school district, it came up when we were doing individual devices, that we actually have in place monitoring devices for what can actually come across the website, what can be downloaded. Mm-hmm. It's all monitored 100%. we have a limited amount of resource on what we can limit, especially when we open ourselves up to these online libraries. They do have their own vetting system, but when you deal with a library that has millions upon millions of books, it's going to be based on the publisher's classification of what a book is, and that's what these online libraries are doing as well. So it's multifaceted as far as the programs and the amount of security walls that they have up, but just as the public should know that we have a pretty robust security program for content for all the devices that the kids have access to. And once again, but it's limited to what we can do as a school district. When you open yourself up to another program, it's really kind of limited to what they have. That's something that has just come up. I know it was in the news the last couple of weeks, and I was at the library with the controversial book last year, and just kind of as a sidebar, being there, do your research before you decide you're going to full boat bring it to the public's attention, because the only person that actually, that book that was checked out by one person in 6 years. And the one person in 6 years, it was just, that was brought to everybody's attention, but if you noticed, nobody was actually paying attention to the book until they found out the book was there. It actually made it bigger than it actually needed to be, and it was, so anyway, I'll move on. The next is the consent agenda. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, sorry. There's the notice and approval of minutes of July 25th. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Seidel and a second by Amy Crosby to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor of the right hand, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes. On to our regular agenda. What's that?
With Janet on the line, we should do a voice vote.
Oh, we need to do a voice vote. Janet, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. We're going to do a voice vote. We're going to, for the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Okay.
Individually, and call the roll.
Ms. Crosby? Ms. Connick?
Yes.
Mr. Kurth?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Motion passes. On to our regular agenda. Right now, we're going to have the first read policies and bylaws and relations. This is going to be a first read only, meaning we're going to be taking the vote on this at the next meeting. What I'm like to do is I'm going to actually read through each agenda that, each one of the policies that is going to be coming up so everybody knows. The Neola 9130 for citizens complaint. There is no Neola number for solicitations, which is the second one. The third would be 0167.1, board member participation in board members via speaker, telephone, alternative means, Neola policy, and voting. The next policy would be 0132.1, formulation of administrative rules and regulations. Neola number 0142.5, filling vacancies on the Board of Education. Neola 0141.1, student representatives to the Board of Education. We don't have a Neola policy for the duties of individual members, somewhat incorporated in 0144.2, board member ethics.
So
Action.
what we will be seeking from the board is if you do have any specific suggestions or recommendations, these are, typically we would bring to you like, this is what we think, but these are the board's policies and bylaws per se. And so we didn't feel it was appropriate for us to give you respective suggestions, but Neola has provided that. So you do have those exemplars in your packets. But if you do have any recommendations, changes, edits, suggestions, please send them to me and Ann, and we'll keep notes throughout the next couple weeks, and we'll be sure to note those edits and the proposed final documents to be approved at the next meeting.
I have one question. It should be an easy one. On policy 132.2, where it says school, administrative guidelines, is that the employee handbook. It says, such administrative guidelines shall be binding on the employees and the school district, students of the district. So are administrative guidelines the same thing as handbook?
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Maybe should we clarify that in there?
I think we could do that.
Okay, all right. And then the other comment I wanted to make is I'm glad to see that the policy 167.1 on voting, that we added the show of hands, because that was something that we were doing, but I don't know if our policy matched it. So I'm glad to see that in there now.
Thank you both. Finally, we're at action items discussed in closed session.
Mr. Clerk, I have a motion to approve the employment services report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Crosby and a second by Mr. Seidel to approve. All those in favor, please. Actually, we're going to have you call the roll for Janet.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Ms. Connick,
Yes.
Mr. Kurth,
Yes.
Ms. Schultz,
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have future meetings and dates. Board meetings are generally held on the second and fourth Monday, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Eisenhower Commons unless noted otherwise. Monday, August 15th, the Personnel Committee will be meeting at 6 p.m. Monday, August 22nd at 7 p.m., regular board meeting. Monday, September 12th at 7 p.m. And Monday, September 26th, the annual meeting, board hearing, and regular meeting is at 7 p.m. Other important events and dates, Tuesday, September 6th is the first day of school. Do I have a motion? Oh, yeah. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Seidel, a second by Ms. Crosby. All those in favor, please call the roll. Sorry, Ann.
Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Ms. Connick,
Yes.
Mr. Kurth,
Yes.
Ms. Schultz.
Yes.
Motion passes. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.